So we can start the next point of our program, the ERC panel discussion. Let's see how many panel members we have online at the moment. We can put them all on the screen.
Hello, Elena. I'm here.
Hello, hi, good morning. We can start with the panel members that are already present online. Okay, hi, can we put Mark Andre on the screen? Okay, Mark Andre, if you want to switch on your camera, you will be on the screen for the panel discussion.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Mike, okay. Is there a mic for Roman?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Hello. Can you please switch on your camera? So if you want to be present with your camera on the screen during the panel discussion.
Yes, I wish to do that, but it tells me
is
that.
Is there a camera? Okay, is there a camera? You don't have to include your camera.
Okay, I got
it. Yeah, fantastic, it works. So let's start with the panel members who are already present, and in no particular order. Let's start with Nahid Talibi, presenting yourself. If you don't mind, just 3 minutes talking about yourself and your project, introducing your project.
Yeah, thank you very much, and good morning to all panelists and also our, let's say, participants. And so basically I am, let's say, a professor in of experimental physics in Christian Albrecht University in Kiel, north of Germany. And so I started my career in Tehran University as a PhD student and graduated in 2011 from this university. And I studied actually electrical engineering. Then I joined as an Alexander von Humboldt research fellow, the Stuttgart Center for Electron Microscopy in, let's say, that South Germany, let's say, part. And then I was focusing mostly on electrodynamics. So that's the expertise that I have, and mostly plasmonics. And then when I joined the Stuttgart Center for Electron Microscopy, I used electron microscopes for doing some interesting electrodynamics at nanoscale. And that brought me to many different ideas by joining 2 different expertise, like say that both electron microscopy and also electrodynamics. And then I, in 2014, I developed actually the first time a kind of idea to do, let's say, an ultra-fast electron microscopy technique that is not using lasers, and it is much cheaper than the normal ultra-fast microscopy techniques that people use. And there I applied in 2014, 2 years after my, let's say, the PhD, for the first ERC grant that failed. And then I learned that I should actually work on my idea further, and that was the reason and the point that was very nicely also mentioned in the first round. And then I worked on that further, and in 2018 I applied again for an ERC grant, and this time I won that. And then just 1 year after, I applied also for a professorship position in Kiel University, that I got it as well. So that's the starting point of, let's say, that my professorship career.
Okay, and thank you very much. And I would like to encourage the audience to check the presentation and see the links provided to the Women in Science talk presented by Dr. Talibi. And there is a very interesting talk about the discoveries you're making. So the next member of our panel is Martina Gerkin, and I would like to invite you to present yourself and your project.
Yes, good morning also from my side. My name is Martina Djaken. I'm also at Kiel University in Germany, and I'm professor of electrical engineering at Kiel University. I had an ERC starting grant already quite some time ago, so that was 2012 to 2018. And I'm here today because I currently have an ERC proof of concept grant running. So the ERC proof of concept grant is an option you can apply for when you already have an ERC basic research grant funded. And the ERC proof of concept grant targets the increase in the technology readiness level for technology transfer into usage. So while the ERC grants, the starting grant was on basic research, now the question is how to use these results in order to progress them towards a practical application. And I'm really excited about this interface between doing basic research and going towards application and doing things together with companies. I've also started a spin-off company from my chair that is headed by postdocs and has been growing already for now some time. So I think that is an interesting route. So maybe a bit on the project itself. So the ERC starting grant was on photo-switchable molecules on nanostructured surfaces. So I'm an electrical engineer, as I was saying, and I found it very exciting that you can change surface properties with photo-switchable molecules. And I had really not much idea about this at all. When I started, it was more bringing together my expertise in electrical engineering, nanostructured surfaces, organic optoelectronics, and this chemistry part. So I applied for the ERC starting grant saying I would include a postdoc from chemistry in order to try out these ideas and bring them more towards application. So is it feasible to actually do an integrated device that uses photo-switchable molecules in order to change the surface properties? And the idea was to integrate an organic light emitting diode as a light source in order to do the photo switching of the surface. So it's an electrical engineering systems project was the ERC starting grant, because it was known that you can switch molecules and change from hydrophobic to hydrophilic or switch other properties. It was known that you can do OLEDs, and it was known that you can do nanostructured surfaces. And the aim of the project was to bring all of this together. And it was actually quite hard to bring it all together. And it was also a bit, I guess, from an engineering side, it was, yes, you can switch molecules, but the efficiency is really rather low for a practical application. So now in the ERC proof of concept grant, what we are actually taking towards a higher technology readiness level is the idea of using organic light emitting diodes as on-chip light sources that have some targeted direction. So it's called Beam OLED, my proof of concept grant, because the idea is to get light out not in all directions, but into a specific direction. And I'm happy to tell you more about what we are doing in the proof of concept. I already have to apologize that I really need to leave at 12 sharp, because as the schedule said, this was scheduled to 12 and I have a follow-up appointment at 12. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Very good, thank you. And this presentation, as I said, it will be shared, and I would like to encourage the early stage researchers to read the interviews by Dr. Gerken about your early stage research career and how it led to ERC proof of concept grant. So now I would like to present Michael Roman Szymanski. You have 3 minutes to talk about yourself and your ERC grant, please.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everybody. Yes, I'm a structural biologist, biochemist, and I work at the Intercollegiate Faculty of Biotechnology at the University of Gdańsk and Medical University of Gdańsk in Poland. And I've been a head of a structural biology lab since 2019. And my career is started basically by me leaving for the US when I was a kid. And then basically all my schooling was in the US. And in the 2017, I came back to Poland as a group leader. In 2019, I got ENVOY installation grant and ERC starting grant. ERC starting grant was 2019 call, and I got it in life science panel #1. So my group is focusing on biochemical and structural aspects of DNA replication and repair. And in particular, the project, the ERC project is on DNA repair in human mitochondria. So I'm happy to talk about this, obviously, and the process of application for my ERC starting grant. But something that's interesting maybe that I want to mention here is that I also applied for this additional €500,000 for equipment. This is an option that you can choose when you move from out of Europe to start your lab in the European Union. So that's something that maybe some of you may have questions about. Thank you very much.
Very good, thank you. And again, the link in your profile will lead you to the interview by Dr. Szymanski about his research career and the way and the thought process, how it led you to the idea for your ERC grant. So we don't have a really good gender balance in the panel today. So the next panelist is Jadranka Sepic with the ERC starting grant. Would you like to present yourself? You have 3 minutes.
Yes, sure. So hi, thank you for inviting me to this meeting. I'm very glad to participate and to present my experience with getting the ERC starting grant. So I come from Croatia, from the University of Split. I'm working here as a professor of meteorology and ocean sciences. And actually I started this work just a year ago. And that is also the same time when my project started. Before this, I worked at the Institute of Oceanography and Fisheries, and there I did my PhD and postdoc. And there I did the research, which will I now continue through the ERC project. So regarding my project, as you can see on the slide, it is devoted to estimating contribution of sub-hourly sea level oscillations to the sea level extremes and to estimating the impact of climate change on these processes. The project kind of presents continuation of my previous work. I had a very positive experience so far with both review panels and the entire application procedure. And for my experience in leading this project, I have to say it's just been 1 year and it's been a Corona year. So I would say that I still don't have so much of experience. Of course, I will be glad to answer any questions and help in any way I can. So this was just shortly.
Okay, very good, thank you. So for your bio, I selected 2 links. One video with your presentation for ERC Info Day, and there is a nice story on the ERC webpage with success stories sharing experience. So the next panel member is Shireen. I don't know if Shireen is present. Okay, Cheryl, maybe she will join us later. Institute of Archaeology, and Mark Andre would like to present yourself. You have 3 minutes.
Well, good morning to everyone. I'm not going to present a long history or bio, but I did my PhD in Guiomar, Kiel, some many years ago. And since over 20 years, I've been a CNRS researcher here in Brest, France, at the western tip of Brittany. Let's see, well, I've been a senior researcher for a long time, so the ERC grant did not in any way help or affect my professional career because I'm an established researcher. That's why it's an advanced grant too, and that's why I'm not so young. And but I would say some of the things I've heard earlier about the need for something which is really groundbreaking research with a brand new idea. I think that definitely applies to the project that was funded, and there was very little literature out there, and there were preliminary tests and measurements done, which was supported by there was a small grant from the Brittany region, which helped me do some preliminary measurements. And so I would definitely recommend that for any potential ERC grant candidates to try to benefit from that type of program and do some preliminary work and some preliminary measurements. And the project itself is to try to apply laser reflectometry to detect very small movements on the seafloor using optical time domain reflectometry. And it's a technique which has been used a lot on bridges and dams and pipelines, on structures on land, but which has never been used on the seafloor because it's already it's pretty expensive to put fiber optic cable down in the seafloor. And so that it's a brand new thing that has never been done before. Yeah. And I think I'll stop there. Thanks.
Okay, very good. And thank you. And your project has a very good presence online. Most of the information is in French, but I managed to find very good publication about your project on CNRS News, and obviously there is a very informative homepage of your laboratory. And last but not least, our one and only ERC evaluator, Professor Maria Tard. Would you like to present yourself? You have 3 minutes.
Yes, good morning, everyone. As you can read here, I am a professor of geography at the University of Malta and the director of a research institute on climate change and sustainable development. I was engaged by the ERC for some time now. I did a full term, so I did almost 8 years as an evaluator, a panel evaluator for the ERC SH2 panel. Even though at some point the numbers changed, but it was either SH2 or SH3. In the last round, I served as a panel chair for the SH2 panel. So my contribution here for anyone to make any questions is from the evaluator's perspective. Of course, I also invite you to follow the presentation that I have this afternoon, which gives a broader and more detailed look into the experience of an evaluator and the tips and tricks for applicants wishing to apply for an ERC. Just a clarification, I was always for an evaluator for the starting grants. Thank you.
Okay. Very good, thank you very much. So we can start our panel discussion with the first question that we would like to discuss based on your experience, and see how was your experience in preparing and submitting your respective proposals. So whenever you want to speak, you might just raise a hand and initiate your contribution. So we would like to discuss at the beginning what are the main tips and tricks. You probably very often asked for the tips and tricks, and please share with us and with the potential applicants what you see is important now, as the first ERC grants for 2021, our calls for the ERC grants are already open. And let me know who would like to start the discussion.
Maybe I can start.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
So yeah, I think that as I mentioned, I have a very good experience with ERC starting grant, particularly because I applied 2 times. And the first time was, let's say in 2014, and it got rejected. So I want to make this as a point that why it is important to, let's say, that exactly know what ERC is demanding and what the actual ERC is looking for. So ERC is looking for a high gain, high risk, let's say, idea that is new, but of course it should also be on a very sound basis. And that means that you have already shown some preliminary works and some kinds of, let's say, that internationally recognized idea that people can follow on that. It is not a one niche that I have and I can follow on that, but it is bringing something new into the science, and that's very important. And I recognize that after, let's say, the failure, reading the failure report and let's say the review reports that were addressing this exactly, then what I did after in 2014, I started applying grants for my ideas and also for, let's say, patent applications that helped a lot for having the ERC grant accepted. And after that, I started also publishing quite a lot on the ideas. And then after that, of course, when you publish and show the idea, you will get invited to the several let's say that well-recognized conferences, and then after that people get to know the idea and get also excited with that, and that is something exactly that, let's say, that helps you to, let's say, develop your idea. I think that helped me a lot. And so regard that the tip that I want to give, so to also the people that wish to particularly apply for ERC starting grant. So of course, if you are at the advanced grant, it's already at the, let's say, level that you have already developed your idea quite well. But for this ERC starting grant, it's very important that you talk about your idea with people and you, let's say, show that your idea and present that in a number of conferences and get feedback how to improve your idea, to bring it to a level that then it will be really bringing a kind of new footing in the science. And that's one point. And the other point is that regarding the, let's say, writing the proposal itself, I will start it much sooner than the call is already going to get announced. So that means that if it is, for example, let's say, you know that this call will come in June, I will already start thinking about the proposal writing and how to, let's say, write it and demonstrate it in a convincing way a bit sooner, a few months sooner, so that you can get also good feedbacks from, let's say, people. And I should say that I did not have much support as you have, for example, here with this nice organization and so on. And that's why that having, let's say, my colleagues involved and looking at my proposal and idea was a very good, let's say, a starting point. So that's from my side. So I hope that was helpful.
And who else would like to contribute to this question? The tips and tricks you probably have been asked a lot. What made you so successful? Jadranka, would you like to contribute?
Okay, I was just, so I would say that 2 things were most important for me. And the first thing was actually an unsuccessful application. And this I did not do for the ERC, but for the Marie Curie individual fellowship. And as I said, it was not successful, but I got very good comments. And actually all the reviewers agreed that I did not explain the science very well. The reason for this was because when I read how to apply, it was said you need to explain how you will disseminate, how will this affect you, how will this affect your institution, how will this affect your country. So all of these explanations, and then in the end I had like a very small space for scientific part. But then everybody says, where is your science? So when I was preparing the ERC starting grant proposal, I decided to keep all these other things at minimum and just to very detailed explain what will be done scientifically. And now all the comments were good. And that is my first tip. So just imagine that you are presenting what you are writing. You are basically writing for the panel reviewers who would want, in my opinion, who would want to understand what you are actually planning to do. And who, well, they will read the instructions on how to evaluate your proposal, but I believe they will give the biggest part of the of their evaluation to the scientific parts. And that's the first thing. And the second thing is to apply. So simply, I was like, there was a 2 month till the deadline for this first application. And I said to my husband, I will not apply, there is no time. I will apply next year because then I will have more time. And he told me, well, he convinced me this is not good. You need to apply now. Who knows what will happen next year? Will you have time? Just, take the time from your work. I was able to do that and prepare a good application. And this turned out very well because, okay, I won it. And next year we had a small baby at the time of when I would have been writing the proposal. So of course, if I waited next year, I would not have written this because it would be impossible. So the advice is to apply. Even if you are not you don't have a perfect proposition, it doesn't matter. You will certainly get some evaluations that will then help you to prepare a new proposal. Will it be 1 year later, if it's good enough, or 2 years later? I mean, it's good to start early. So that's my suggestion.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's very important to just seize the moment and apply for Marie Curie. I wanted to mention this point that if you have an experience writing Marie Curie applications, it's just such a natural step forward to your ERC application next. And Mark-André, would you like to contribute to this question? What are your tips?
Well, I can chime in and confirm that I think it's a good idea to start ahead of time. That was the case when, in my case, my deadline was like late August, and I think most of the writing was already done in May, June, and then I did have some support to help produce the budget. I think that's important too, and having the plan, having the detailed work plan, putting in like the Gantt chart with all of the different steps that you're planning for the future. I think that's very important as well. And so, yeah, those are, I guess, the couple of things I would say. And that breakthrough idea, that's absolutely key. It can't be something incremental. It has to go beyond what you were doing and what you did. And that seems to be, a key element too.
Okay, thank you very much. Martina, would you like to contribute? You have such a different experience. You're the only one with the proof of concept. What was your secret applying for the proof of concept? Was it easier applying for the proof of concept comparing to the starting grant?
Well, first of all, easier, I think it's always hard to measure. How do you measure easy? And I didn't apply for others, so I don't know. I mean, you don't know at the end how it was rated. You just know it got accepted. So I think it's kind of hard to say now if it was if it was rated well and it was easier, or if it was more difficult. So putting that aside, in terms of the writing, the ERC proof of concept is really a short proposal. So in that sense, it's easier because it's short. And then on the other hand, for the proof of concept, I actually did wait until we really did have things together. I think for the proof of concept, it seems from the discussions I had that it's really good if a patent application has been made already on the idea. And our university, it took quite a while until we had the results that really show the patent idea can work, so that they did put the patent application forward. And I was, my most preliminary work for the proof of concept was really pushing that the patent application is handed in by the university. And I think that is also, from what I've heard, it's good if you have done that before submitting the proposal. On the other hand, also what I've heard is that for the proof of concept, you do not have to have lots of entrepreneurial experience prior and so on, but that you can, I mean, just putting forward the aim to bring it towards a higher technology readiness level and to start the discussion of how to use the results, that is already seen quite positively. And I've heard from people who have had 2 or 3 proof of concept grants accepted during their ERC basic research grant. So in that sense, it seems that it's easier. I actually don't know the quota, what percentage is accepted for the proof of concepts. So I guess my tip is for the proof of concept, it really should be a proof of concept. In a sense, you should not put in that you want to do more basic research, because that's just not the idea of the proof of concept. And at least from my grant, I can say that I did put the patent application in prior, so that I can give the number of the application and say that we have already thought about how to secure the ideas. And it seems like a good idea to do that, also to move, to show that you move towards the application of the idea and the technology transfer.
Thank you for sharing your tips. I can imagine that your experience will be interesting not only for the audience, but also for the present panel members. And Dr. Szymanski, would you like to share your experience? What were your tips and tricks for the potential applicants? You have a very interesting background moving back to Poland. So did you enjoy writing your ERC application?
Yes. So I started writing my application quite early, while I was still in the US, and the project kind of developed, and the idea was kind of bunkers. So I felt that I need a lot of preliminary data, and every year that I was thinking about submitting, I was like, okay, I need data. And so I was kind of pushing this a bit further and further away. But knowing myself, this is a very personal thing, but I know that some people are like that. So I'm just gonna bring it up. I like to do things the last minute, right? And then, so I knew that it will help me if I submit that idea earlier to, I say, a national agency that gives grants here in Poland. So this is exactly what I did. This is permitted as long as that you state that you're applying for a different grant with the same idea. You need to state it in the proposal, both in ERC and at the national level. And this is what I've done. So I basically had the deadline 2 months prior to the ERC deadline. So I submitted one grant, basically the same grant, to the national agency, and then I still had 2 months to work on the sort of completed grant. That sort of was actually it made a big difference for me. And I think if you are able to do that, and if you are working, and if you like to procrastinate and do things at the last minute, I think that's a huge help. So that's from my personal experience. It's a tip for people that like to do things last minute.
Thank you very much. If you don't have questions from the audience, Norlin, I don't know if you will have questions from the audience.
Elena, there are 3 questions from the audience.
Yes, Norlin, can you please read the questions from the audience?
The questions are for Maria Tart. The first question is, how intense and hot are the discussions among the panel members on the ranking of the proposals?
Okay, so I'll take them one by one, I guess. The discussions can be quite intense. You may have panel members who have varying degrees of expertise in the particular field, and therefore the discussions can be quite intense in terms of, say, for example, the high risk, high gain. Yes, I would say that if you ask how intense or hot are the discussions among the panel members, they can get quite intense in actual fact. They are experts in their field, and so they tend to want to ensure that there is quality and excellence, of course, and so the discussions are quite intense. For the second questions, I can read the questions now, Oli. How active are the panel members during the discussions that they haven't been allocated to evaluate the proposal? So basically, just to give a bit of background, each proposal gets allocated some panel members to read the proposal, and they lead the discussion in the panel when the proposal gets discussed. The other panel members allow the chosen panel members to discuss first the proposal. If they can come to an agreement, there is very little scope really for additional input from members that have not been allocated the proposal. However, when there is a lot of discussion and there is well, some level of disagreement between the panel members, generally the practice is that other panel members are brought in, they read the proposal and they contribute to the discussion. And so the discussion is opened up to more people so that there is a better understanding and of course a conclusion to the discussion of the evaluators. And the third question is, which evaluations are more significant during the panel discussion? The ones from the lead panel evaluator or from the external referees in case they are in conflict? This will depend pretty much on the expertise of both the lead panel evaluator and the panel evaluators allocated to the proposal versus the expertise of the external referee. So the external referee might indeed have more expertise, and therefore it is valued, the review is valued in terms of its contribution. It is not a matter of saying that in each case or in each proposal, the lead panel evaluation takes over the external referee. There is an in-depth, and this has been my experience in all the panels that I've attended and chaired, that there is a real appreciation of the external referee contributions. Sometimes they are the real experts. Of course, they are chosen by the panel as external referees because of their expertise. And so it is almost natural that the panel does listen to the external referees well. And if the external referees have a very good evaluation and make very, very strong arguments in favor or against, then the lead panel evaluator does indeed take it on board. So, yeah, I hope I've answered all these questions, Nikolaus.
Yes, very good. Thank you very much. Please keep the questions coming from the audience and from the virtually present potential applicants, and until the audience presents us with the new question, let's discuss the next point that we drafted for this discussion. How has your ERC experience enhanced your career as a researcher? As you can see, to attract attention to this question, I selected the image reflecting the amount of early stage researchers applying for the advanced grant and starting grant. So obviously it is very important for the researchers to participate in ERC and try to apply for ERC as early as possible in their career. And the next question is what's next? What would be beyond your ERC? And I would like to ask to start with Jadranka, if you can contribute to this discussion.
Yes, thank you. So as I said, I just got to the ERC 1 year ago, so my project just started. What I can say is that it helped me move to a new institution. So I changed institutions shortly after getting the project. So I think this was an additional like help to move to the institute to the where I thought it is better. Another thing is that what I find is that people are very willing to collaborate. Okay, so they were willing before, but if I ask someone, will they join me? Will they help with the project? Will they participate? I have so far always gotten a positive answer. So perhaps people are more willing to share data and some of their findings. And also one good thing that I find is because I was able to employ young people. So currently we have 3 persons working on the project, and I think this is excellent. So both for me and for them. And the next step beyond my ERC, well, it's just 1 year, so I'm not really sure. I'm very interested in this proof of concept, and I have some ideas, but they're very vague, so I cannot say anything very definite on this. I plan to stay in the science and keep doing the research and teaching, but for the next steps, I will think in a couple of years.
Thank you very much. And Martina, would you like to say something? What's next up after your proof of concept?
That's actually not what I wanted to say, but I would like to
Okay.
say something, and I can also say something
Yes.
on that if you like. What I wanted to say is, well, I already had the professorship when I got the proof of concept and also the ERC starting grant, but I did have a similar what is called a junior group in Germany. And I think it is really important, if you want to stay in the science career, that you are able to define a larger project and to set up a group. And I have been in many finding commissions for professorship positions, and it is seen as really good if you have been able to acquire an ERC starting grant or a similar program where you set up your own group and do your own bigger idea. So I really want to encourage people to think on this large scale. And maybe also one more word on this, I've also seen proposals, and I don't know how it is for the ERC, but for similar programs in Germany, where people then say, I don't even need 1.5 million. I will just apply for 400,000 and I will have better chances because I don't want so much money. But this is normally not how these programs work. But what you should do is to try to generate a big idea, a big concept where you really do need the people and write what you want to do with the people. It is really the chance to set up your own group and to get your scientific independence. And that's why I think the ERC starting grant or similar projects are so great, because they enable you to do this. It's not just a postdoc stipend where you can do your own research, but it's really gaining scientific independence through this type of project. And that's why I think it's important, and at least in Germany, when you apply for a professor position with this, having gained such a grant, you can show that you do have a bigger vision where you can employ a group. And that's what I think is why it enhances the career so much, to get such a starting grant or another type of group funding of 1.5 million or some larger fund. So that is one point. Then the other point from my own side, I have seen the ERC, being a professor already, I've seen the ERC grant as an opportunity to tackle a larger problem. Because with a regular grant, one PhD student, you just cannot follow this larger idea. Like I was saying, I was doing something interdisciplinary where you need chemists and you need engineers and put it all together, and that is just not possible in a small scale. So I think that is what was for me really great, to have the opportunity to tackle such a larger project. And now for the proof of concept, I mean, it helps me to see where we can go with these basic research ideas towards follow-up projects with industry, and that's what I think is good there. And I've always aimed at obviously continuing the career, so applying for other funds. And also, while I had the ERC starting grant, I was applying for other funds in order to get a basically a larger group, more ideas, more work done in a sense. So I think the ERC projects are not kind of dead ends, but it's a basis to continue on.
Yeah, it's great fundamental stepping stone for the greater future for you and for your laboratory and for your group. And Marc-André, would you like to contribute? What are you thinking about enhancing your career?
Well, I'm sort of towards the end of my career, but I'm also, it turns out, director of my lab or department chair. So I've got other things kind of keeping me busy, but I will have to try to pass that responsibility off in a few years so I can maybe finish my ERC project. I would also like to go the way that Professor Gherkin went and try to do a proof of concept application afterwards, because my project is for the use of telecommunication cables with additional fibers to try to detect movements on the seafloor. I've also put in a patent application for that, and so I would like to try to take that to a higher technology readiness level. So I think that's at least related to the project what I would like to do towards the end and beyond.
Okay, thank you. Nahid, would you like to contribute?
I think almost all the points have been raised completely, so I don't have much to say, but I would just say that ERC grant can have a significant, I think that, let's say, impact on the career. I also started as a junior research group leader in Max Planck Institute in Stuttgart, and then after I got my ERC, I applied for just 3 let's say that positions, and then at the end of the day, it was me who had to choose where I wanted to go. So that's a very good sign. I think that that's a very big impact on the, let's say that the career. And I also take it not as a career, let's say research development stage. So that's not, in my personal opinion, that's not how we should look at as a ERC grant. So it is a very good that it has an impact, but the most important is the scientific goal. And as Professor Gherkin also mentioned, to have a solid, nice scientific goal, and that's the main point. And after that, of course, the doors will open, and then you will have as automatically, let's say, that positions coming. But the most important is that you get in, let's say, some kind of independent degree of freedom to follow your own ideas and follow your own team, and do some interdisciplinary research also to, let's say that, let's say, prove your idea. And that's, I think, the beauty of all the larger scale grants. It can be a ERC, it can be also other projects in particular Germany, like Evaluator. So that will be, of course, I think that that's the way that we should look at all these grants.
Thank you very much. It's a very important point, the fact that you mentioning the interdisciplinarity, and you can see that interdisciplinarity is affecting the choice of the new ERC panels for the Horizon Europe. We have 2 more ERC panels, and they keep adding the new panels thanks to the interdisciplinary research you are doing as well. And if we don't have questions from the audience, we can discuss the next point. What are the winning tactics of a good proposal? Now the ERC budget is getting even bigger, as you can see, for the Pillar 1, for the open science. There is at least 17% of the total budget of Pillar 1 of the whole Horizon Europe is on the ERC. Again, tips and tricks, but more precisely with regards to the application. If you can refer to the application you wrote, was it mostly the part A, or there is also something that you would like to share as an applicant? Shall we start with Nahidi again? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think that very good, important to develop tactics, but I think it's also a little bit depending on different ideas and personalities of the people. So I think this diversity can be very nicely followed by the panel members. At least I'm not a panel member, but I have been involved in evaluating 2 ERC grants. So I would say that that's a very important point, that developing a tactic should be really, let's say, that be also personally, let's say, linked. So what I did personally, I look at my idea and I thought how it can develop certain problems in my field. And I addressed those problems particularly at the beginning and told that, yeah, these are the open problems and my idea will, let's say, help, for example, the mutual coherence between the electron beams that I have and my optical waves, so I can have a better, let's say, that technique for ultra fast, for probing ultra fast dynamics with electron microscope. And how I can do that, it's, for example, different methodologies available, and I do not have only one specific plan for these methodologies, but several of them. So either I will use this, and I opened, let's say, I try to put forward this as a kind of, let's say, way that give me some kinds of flexibility in the methodology level, that what I will use depends on, let's say, the success of each let's say, method that I will use step by step. And then at the end, you will open a very important, let's say, area, and you say what will be the impact of your research on the whole area as well. For example, then I have a better way to resolve fine structures in my, for example, materials. I can have a better spectroscopy technique, weighs better. What is the level of, let's say, improvement? It is 1 degree of freedom. Let's say if it is a 10% improvement, or let's say, for example, a 50% improvement, that's very important to give numbers and estimate, for example, exactly how your, let's say, proposal will impact the field. I think that was the main thing that I tried to do.
Yes. Okay, very good. Methodologies, mentioning methodologies and giving numbers, it's a classical example of the winning tactics. If we can ask our Maria Tart to contribute to this question as an evaluator, you probably have a very good idea of the winning tactics for the part A, for writing the part A.
Okay, so what I think for the part A, what I think the most important thing in the part A is to engage. So you need to engage the evaluators on both the idea, but also convince them that the methods and the approaches that are being proposed are realistic and will indeed lead to a successful outcome. So most of in the panel discussions for the part A, of course, the part A does not have the full information. And so what you want at that point is to raise that question in the evaluator's head. Is there enough here to want me to read the part B? Is this challenging enough? Is this high risk enough? Are they realistic in terms of how they think they can achieve this? So there are things which you identify in part A, given you are as a reviewer, as an evaluator, only given pieces of the whole puzzle. And so it is very, very important that within the part A, you highlight the high risk, high gain. So the excellence issue, the one thing that sets your proposal apart, and then convince the readers that you have a methodology which is, well taught, because you find sometimes methodologies which raise more questions than answer questions in the evaluator's head, in terms of, you start thinking, but this person is an engineer and he's suggesting methods which are very far away from the field. Is this being innovative or just being too risky? And so you need to be careful in the parties. So you raise the more interesting questions in the evaluators' heads. And so you invite them to an extent to read the part B, where of course all the information is found. So yeah, I would think that that is the trick, the main winning trick of part A, really and truly.
Okay, thank you very much, Jadranka. Would you like to contribute to your to the discussion regarding the winning tactics? How much did you mention of your methodology, and how much did you manage to intrigue the evaluator, do you think?
Well, I can discuss my project proposal. So I just have it open now here. And what I can say, yes, it is important to gain attention. So I started with an introduction, and in this introduction, I try to explain why is this important. So not basically the research, well, not the methodology, but the research I propose, why is it important? And I think the good thing here was because a lot of people live next to the sea. And of course, sea level extremes are very important, and they are also very important in the context of climate change because they are probably going to become higher and stronger and more dangerous. So this was kind of attracting attention with some kind of future hazard. And after this, I gave a very detailed description of methodology. So in most of my part of the proposal, I explained what will be done, and I think I did it very, very detailedly. So not the equations, not this stuff, but I tried to explain as best as I could everything that will be done. And I don't know if this some suggestion, but I put a lot of figures. So I have like 5 or 6 figures here. Okay, and then I gave some promises how this will affect the future European science and world science. And one thing perhaps that I would like to say is this: you often ask about high risk, high gain, but I actually wrote in my proposal that this is not a high risk because it will, I will get something and it will be the first time somebody has got this, but in a sense, it will not be, whatever I get will present a first clue about the future condition of these extremes along the European coast. So I kind of wrote this is a high gain, but it's not really high risk because we will get some, or I will get some conclusions.
Yeah, the application about about tsunamis in the Mediterranean Sea, it's always very exciting and must have been a bit of an emotional element for the evaluators to read.
Perhaps. I don't know. They did not complain about this when I read their reviews.
Martina, would you like to speak about your part A? Was there a place to engage evaluators emotionally, or it's all about numbers? What do you think?
Well, the proof of concept doesn't have this A and B, so that's the good news. You don't have to worry about A and B. So you have to write. You just write one part and put the things in. I mean, it's also called part B, but I think part A was just the numbers basically. So it's not you don't have this separation for the proof of concept. And I think for the proof of concept, well, it's hard for me to say, as I said, because I don't have a rejected proposal, so I don't have any comparison. But what I heard from others, it's important to put in a risk analysis and contingency plan. So you should kind of state what the risks are and what you would do in cases that things don't work out. So I do give as a tip, put in a risk analysis and contingency plan in order to show what the risks are. But I cannot say anything else about A and B, since that is not in the proof of concept. But I would actually be interested in general, because I've had many discussions on this, to hear from Maria, if it is good to put in part A already the work packages, because that is a discussion we have had here many times. If you should put a list of the work packages and kind of a rough draft of what is happening in part A to show that you have a clear idea of the work plan, or if that should be only in part B, and in part A you only write the questions and the general strategy.
Okay,
Well,
Maria, would you like to answer?
Yeah, I think the details of the work packages, of course, have to be included in the part B, because there is no space pretty much in the part A. I think what you need to think about in the part A is the way in which you either structure the questions to reflect the work packages, so that there is no big difference between, you know, how you have structured the research questions and then the work packages. There is a little it's little distance as possible between those two. Whether you have a diagram which shows the structure of the proposal in part A, we've had that in the past. Sometimes it helps to get the readers to, or the reviewers and evaluators to appreciate the thought process, especially if you have, you know, a complex proposal. Many of them are, of course, you know, straightforward. They lead one to the other. But if it is a complex proposal, particularly interdisciplinary, with different links between different parts of the project, I think it always helps to have at least an indication, a diagram of some sort, to help with the evaluation of part A. But again, there won't be much space, so you need to also weigh in how much other parts of that application need to go into part A versus how much you put or uncover later. Ideally, there are no big surprises in part B, you know, for the evaluator. It's going in depth from what you've mentioned in part A, basically.
Mm-hmm. And Marc-André, would you like to share your experience with structuring your part A? How did you find the balance between numbers, emotions, and structure and methodologies?
Okay, I'm not so sure about emotions, but well, my project touches on movements on the seafloor and faults, and so indeed like tsunamis. So I guess the interest, the societal interest, is at least pretty clear. And I would say I tried to seek advice from another ERC grantee who had gotten a starting grant to help improve the part A and to make it catchy, because you really have to grab the attention of the panelists and convince them that this is breakthrough science. Because if well, at least for the advanced, you don't get invited to a presentation in Brussels where you can try to convince the panel members. It's all in the written documents, and so it's got to be convincing, and you really have to sell what you're going to do. It's like I guess for book proposals for authors, what they call the hook. You've got to get that hook and catch their attention, and yeah.
Okay. Michael, would you like to contribute? We were discussing the balance. How do you make the evaluator swallow the hook? Is it numbers? Is it methodologies?
I think that all of you already raised very important issues, and all of that is true. I think one thing that maybe I would like to add, science aside, because obviously you need to hook them with a great idea, interesting idea, but what part A or B1 in starting grant has is also your CV, your early track record. And I think, you know, while you hook them on the idea and get them excited, what you should also do is you should show them in the CV and early track record that you're competent to do all the things that you're proposing. So I think a very important part of this part A is this CV part, where you kind of show them that you are able to carry out the ideas that you're proposing in the research part.
Thank you very much for mentioning it. It's a very important point to mention that the excellence of your research is as important as the excellence of your career, and as an applicant, it's one of the tips and tricks that I wanted to mention in this discussion. And Noeline would like to present us with the question from the audience.
It is from Nikolaos Floratos. To all panel members. What was the most challenging issue each one faced when they were writing the proposal, and how they dealt with it?
Okay, Martina, would you like to start? What was the biggest challenge when you started writing and you realized this is the big challenge? What am I going to do with it? Martina,
I was already a bit mentioning that actually I found the proposal writing for the proof of concept really quite easygoing in a sense. It's quite short. It's quite well. I thought that was not that difficult. Maybe the two most difficult problems were, and one I already mentioned, was pushing the patent application. And I think you just have to. I don't know how your universities function, but you have to keep on asking and trying to get them to do it. But it's quite at least at Kiel University, quite a long process from handing in that you found something to them thinking about it, asking more questions, thinking more, asking more questions, and so on, and until really doing it. So at the end, I was really pushing it and saying, I want to hand in this proposal, please submit, and otherwise we cannot do this. And so that did work out, but that was really the kind of keeping with a long breath on it, that it really does happen. The other part that is a bit difficult, I think, for the proof of concept is to get the market analysis, because if you really want to have market numbers, it's quite expensive basically to buy them, and so you have to try to find numbers, but you actually can find numbers when you start looking for the different markets that there are, and you can put together your own graphics from the numbers that are published. But that is also in a sense not that trivial, but there I just recommend, I mean, do a search, try to find what is available, and then do graphics out of those numbers that are available. I think it's also kind of obvious that as a researcher you do not have all the market information that might be required at a later stage, but you should. It's necessary to do the effort to try to find out about the market and the numbers of the market.
Great, thank you very much. For us as RSSD support services, this is a very important point to see how we can support our applicants. And Nahidi, what was your oh moment? So first you had aha moment, and then you said, oh, what am I going to do with this challenge? Was there the most challenging part in your application writing?
Yes, I'm just thinking. So yeah, basically, yes. So the first thing that was, of course, this high risk, high gain part and plan B part. So obviously I was told always that I should have a plan B available, and that demands some kinds of thinking and, let's say, evaluating your project and see what kind of plan B you can offer really if this is not going to work. So indeed it was a high risk project, and it was not obvious even to the experts that it might work or not. And even with my preliminary results, they had questions whether it can go really to that level that can be technologically relevant, and also as I proposed. So that really requires some, let's say that some kind of a strategy developing, and also thinking ahead what you can do for coming to a plan B, let's say that in that case. And that was probably the main issue with my proposal. But writing the proposal, of course, was kind of straightforward. And after we have the preliminary work, and after we have this, let's say that starting that well in advance, that's of course time consuming, but it is straightforward. But that's something that, let's say that the plan B part and high risk, high gain part, that demands, I think, some kind of, let's say, strategy development.
Okay, very good. Jadranka, would you like to share what was your strategy attacking the most challenging part of the proposal writing? And did you ask for some support when you was the last stumbling stone in your application process?
Well, I would say the most difficult part was starting the writing, just deciding that I will write and then developing an idea how to write it. Okay, but then when I started to write, regarding the things in the proposal, well, one thing I found was there. I had maybe a problem with the free form because I could not find very detailed on how this proposal should look like. It was basically, well, okay, so there is a number of stations, and maybe when I was writing, maybe just a few things that you need to write in the proposal. But basically, as I understood, the entire party was in a pretty free form. So to choose what parts to include and what parts not to include. And then during the entire proposal, I think I had issues with administrative things, perhaps, like what things regarding Croatian economy can and cannot be included in the proposal. So, for example, refunding of my salary and things like that, which are more related to national laws than to the ERC laws. So I could not really get good information from my national contact point on these some administrative points of the proposal.
Okay, so probably for this point, to address this point, recently the national contact points have developed this idea of proposal reading. So if you're preparing for your next step and next proposal, you can ask your national contact point to organize a session of proposal reading, which we're doing in Malta. And Michal, would you like to contribute to this discussion? What was the stumbling point in your proposal writing? Was there something that you thought, this is difficult, what shall I do?
I would like to kind of maybe a different perspective, put a different spin on this, because I thought for me personally, I think it was one of the easiest application, because I always had to kind of constrain myself not to be too crazy on the idea, and like kind of had to calm myself down, and knowing that if I go too crazy, then there's going to be a problem, and then feasibility, and this is too risky, and blah blah blah. But here I knew that I can kind of go wild, and I did. And obviously, I had a lot of data to support what I was trying to do, so it was not completely crazy, but it was kind of freeing for me writing this ERC application, because for the national grants, I knew I have to kind of tone it down and then not to make it too crazy. So I would a different spin is don't be afraid. Say what you always want to say, and you never had the chance. So that's sort of my take on this.
Fantastic. So different people find different parts difficult. So some say this is free, or this is difficult, and you're saying this is free. So let's go for it. And I guess when there is a difficult part in the application, it shows, and the evaluator can actually say that applicant found this part really difficult and didn't address it. Maria, would you like to contribute to this question? Does it show in the application that the applicant found this part of the application difficult? It's a question for Maria Tar. So would you like to contribute to this question? Well, does it show in the application?
I wouldn't know in this part because I didn't write the proposal.
But does it show in the application?
There are a number of issues.
Maybe applicant, when they find something difficult, they just skip it. And does it show in the application?
Oh, no, it shows. You can tell that there will be some issues, like, for example, methodological challenges, which they wouldn't have tackled well, or they're not prepared well for it, particularly handling interdisciplinary proposals. And that immediately comes up in the proposal. I think that is the most obvious example when writing a proposal, to have promises of interdisciplinarity, but then major flaws or missing parts or missing descriptions in the application, which shows that there is still not 100% clarity in terms of how certain methodological challenges will be overcome.
Thank you very much. And the last but not least, before we wrap up the discussion, I would like to ask Marc-André, what did you find the most difficult part in the application writing? So the question is coming from from a professional advisor who helps with the application writing. And so you can imagine why he's asking this question.
Well, again, I think each person lives it differently. I don't have particularly much trouble writing, shall we say. So whether it's writing papers or writing other things, so it's never been a problem in my mind. And when you have something interesting you want to describe, then what you want to do, then you do it. So I don't think that was particularly difficult. I would say there were challenges during the preparation, because among some of the preliminary work that I wanted to do, and I was hoping to get some results from certain preliminary tests, and they did not work out. And so that forced me to make other preliminary tests. And so that was probably good, that setback, because it actually forced me to make preliminary tests on the in the region and on the particular cable that I was going to use for the project itself. And so I think that demonstrated that I had access to that infrastructure, that I could gain access to that infrastructure. And so I think that was a beneficial thing for the project itself. I might suggest one tip or one helpful hint, and that is to look at other successful ERC proposals if you can. Ask people around you in your field if they are willing to share their B1 and B2 forms with you. And I think you can see what worked, and that can provide you with some ideas.
Thank you very much. Do you think you would be ready to share your proposal if one of your NCPs ask you for the help? Because now there is this idea circulating among NCPs that for the aspiring applicants, we offer the proposal writing. So, and this is one of the smoothest way I can think of in asking you to share your proposal for the future applicants. What do you think?
I have already shared my proposal with people who've asked me. That's no problem. I've had a couple of scientists who've asked me. One, well, for what it's worth, he was successful a year later, so that's good for him. Peter van der Beek from Grenoble. And well, a few others I've shared it with. I don't know how their proposals have turned out, but yes, I'm happy to share my proposal with anyone who asks me.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. The proposal reading looks like we get a proposal. We don't. Nobody is going to copy and paste it. It's just a reading with your NCP and looking at the most important points and then emphasizing. And this is an important point to mention for the other panel members. So at some point, I will ask you to probably share your proposal and contribute to the proposal reading exercises. And now we're actually 6 minutes overdue our panel meeting. Thank you very much for your participation. It was a very productive. I will be writing the notes and will probably publish this panel discussion because there were so many important points mentioned that let's follow up this panel discussion, and thank you very much for your contribution. So what's next?
Well, thank you.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
for inviting us.
Bye.
Thank you. See you later.
Thank you very much for this very, very, very interesting panel discussion.